I am thrilled, beyond thrilled to have you guys here today. And as you can see, I have guests. I have Mr. Christopher Hughes. Well, first of all, welcome to the Crystal Crawford Show, in case you forgot where you were listening to this on. And my guests today are some of my favorite people. Mr. Christopher Hughes, streaming in live from Australia, 7 in the morning there. And Ms. Paula.
6.
6? I thought so. You're amazing. And Paula Peralta is in Los Angeles and is fabulous. And that's as great as my introductions get. I'm just a huge fan. So I wanted to have them on today, you guys, because first of all, they're having an amazing class that starts today called the How to Become Money Workbook. But every facilitator and every person facilitates this workbook and has a different perspective on money, which I think is the immense gift of Access Consciousness and of the facilitators, is that we are all so different. And so that's the first invitation that we'll get to. But the second thing is, like, you both are so different with money. And we call this week's episode Money, the hardest or the easiest part of your life, which I totally stole from you, Chris, because you threw that out there. And I'm like, good point. So I don't know. I just thought we could just jump on here and riff and chat about money, all things money. Honestly, my first curiosity for both of you is, like, do you currently have ease with money? And have you always had ease with money? And what is your money story in, like, a nutshell, or a long one, or whatever?
Go, Miss Paula.
So thanks so much, Crystal, for having us, inviting us on. And I would say, no, I have not always had ease with money. And I currently have more ease with money than I've ever had before in my life. And it's just the beginning. So how does it get even better than that? Because it's like, as much as, like, my wealth has grown and the ease with money that I've had over the last, I would say, especially a couple of years, has shifted. Like, I know it's just the beginning, like the tip of the iceberg, as they say.
Yep.
And it's really interesting because I've been looking at this thing about money. Obviously, like you said, Chris and I have the How to Become Money Workbook coming up. And I was really struck yesterday where I went to visit a friend who just had a baby. And she had, so she has like a 1-week-old baby, and then she also has twins who are about 1.5 years old. And one of the things that I saw is I watched her, like, change and care for this newborn baby. And then what I also watched happen is, just a few minutes later, the 1.5-year-old, she has a twin girl and then a twin boy. The twin girl actually came and, like, started, like, laying out a blanket and grabbed one of her babies and, like, started the process of, like, diapering her stuffed animal this exact same way she had seen her mother do, like, just a few minutes before. And it really struck me with, like, how much we are entrained to things that we don't even think about. We just see it as kids, and we see, like, these behaviors or these patterns or these things happen. We don't even know why we're doing the things we're doing, or we don't even really know exactly what we're doing a lot of times, but we just do it and we never question it because it's just the thing that we do. And I've realized more and more that that's a lot of how I was functioning with money. I was really functioning from, like, the ways that I saw my family functioning with money, the arguments that they were having about money, the lack of money that was being chosen at times, the, like, you know, the poverty mentality, like, and sometimes, like, the wealth mentality, but it just showed up very differently for them. And I continued those behaviors without ever questioning them. And that's one of the things I've been looking at more and more, is, like, this is really about, like, changing your financial reality and having money with ease. For me, is about questioning everything you've ever been taught, everything you've seen about money, everything you've ever heard about money, good, bad, right, wrong, like, looking at all of it and being like, does this work for me? And does this contribute to the financial reality that I'd like to create?
I love that. Yeah, same for me.
In short.
I love it. It was very similar for me too. Like, I didn't even know that I was doing my parents' reality with money, which was total survival, total survival. Actually, it turns out you can create survival with the same energy that you can turn around and create thrival. But I was only ever shown one way, and so that's just what I did. Yeah. So, yeah. Chris, tell me yours.
Well, similar to Paula, I have not always had ease with money. I've always had a joy with money. I've always loved it. I've always loved what you could create with it, but I didn't always necessarily have ease with money. Am I currently having ease with money? Yes. And I want to clarify that because my ask is constantly getting bigger. When I say my ask, I mean that which I'm reaching for, that which I'm striving to create and bring into my life. So it's not as though now I have lots of money in reserve so that I can enjoy my retirement. It's not really like that for me because I recognize that growing up, I learned to live hand to mouth.
Me too.
And there was a point where I was creating more and more money and my hand just got bigger and so did my mouth. Still creating like that, like going, whatever I got in for the week or the month, that's how much I would spend, and sometimes a bit more. Yeah. Now what I'm doing is with every dollar that I earn and spend, it's an investment in something for the future. And because I've been doing that so consistently now for so long, all of it is about creating more. So there's a level of peace with money in that I always know it'll be there, and I always know what I ask for I will create, and I'm never satisfied. So I'm always reaching for something greater. It's just, instead of it going hand to mouth, it's going to create a grander playground to explore and be in. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. This I don't know if this is a silly question or not, but I was curious for you, like, how do you expand like your menu of possibilities? And I know it's not a how, but what I've been recognizing is that, like, for me and for a lot of people that I see, is our menus growing up were very small. Like, you know, basically you've got 2 or 3 choices of living. And then as I started to travel for access classes, I just saw this like massive different set of possibilities. And what I've been looking at is like, what question can I be, or what can I ask to expand like what I can ask for? Because we do have humanoiditis, like more is our middle name. And so how do you play with that, or is it just naturally occurring for you in that you're like, oh yeah, that like, I don't even know if I'm asking it well.
Yeah, no, I actually love that question. So for me, there's 2 things that came up with that. One is, and this is something that I'm looking at, and this is actually my ask going into one of my asks going into the How to Become Money workbook, is like to stop living in an either or universe. Like, where as much as my wealth has grown, my financial reality has changed and shifted. Like, I still very much am like, okay, I can do this or I can do this. And it's like, no, like, I'm actually asking for a reality where I can choose all of it, and I don't have to, but I have the capacity, like I'm able to choose all of it and have all of it with ease. And going back to that initial question, I think for me, when I look at that question of like, how do you get, like, if you're not where you want to be, how do you get where you're trying to go? And for me, it's been a huge conversation about like really undefining money and acknowledging the places where money does show up. Like, that's the first thing. So often we like condense money down to this, like, it's dollars in the bank, it's a number in the bank account, it's like cash in hand. And it is those things. And it's also like the flow. It's the flow of receiving and the gifting that we be in the world naturally. And like you said, the humanoid, like always wanting to create, we're constantly creating and generating. But if you want something to grow, you have to acknowledge it showing up as it's showing up in your life. And so looking at the places where money's coming in, and it may not look like I said, cash in hand. It may look like a friend buying your lunch or buying you coffee, or you get a 20% discount on, you know, whatever a purchase was. I even just yesterday, I went into a shop and they had sent me, of course, as a shop does to lure you in, they had sent me like this, like, you know, you're a VIP customer, we'll give you 20% off. And so I went in to make my purchase, and I got to the cashier, and I didn't have the coupon with me. And I was like, I swear it's in my email. And then what happened is the guy said, hey, you know what? It's okay. I actually have an even bigger discount available for you. You don't need the email. And so I ended up getting like more than twice like off my purchase than I would have had I like been able to find that email. And that right there, like, that's money. And so I was like, whoa, how's it get better than that? Thank you so much, universe. Like, you know, and so that's the acknowledgement. It's that joy and that fun and that play of like, let's see, like, what can I acknowledge? What receiving can I acknowledge today? Like, that's the first step, is looking at the places where you are receiving. And yet, you know, maybe your target is to be a millionaire or a billionaire, but right now, like, you might have a negative balance in your bank account. That doesn't mean you don't have money. So in order to start the process of kind of moving into what you desire to have show up, it's about acknowledging what is currently showing up for you, and then also asking for more of that to show up.
Cool. Chris, what do you got?
Well, yeah, it's very similar to Paula, and always asking, what have you made impossible with money? Do you know, like, there's so many of us that have enough to be quote unquote satisfied and have a good life, quote unquote. And what else? What else would you actually like? I was having a conversation about this with Simone Milicis. You know, one of the things that she was really inspired by recently was Dane here hiring a private jet to fly him from Houston in the United States all the way to Milan in Italy. That's a six-figure choice. And when you see things like that, examples like that, people have either made it impossible or they've judged it and gone, well, that's ridiculous, that's too much. So my sort of thing right now is asking, what have I made too much, or what have I made impossible, and challenging that and going, you know what, I'd like to have that. One of my greatest loves is fashion and clothes, and I'm bored with what you get shown in the shop. One of my asks for myself is to be able to go to Valentino and go, yes, I'm interested in seeing the new spring line. What have you got? And start buying couture. Again, that's a totally different level of expenditure financially. But I was looking at it and I was like, well, why not? That's one of the things that brings me joy, and I would love to experience that. You know, what would you like to be adding to your life that could create more for you and more joy and more for your body, and create a question in other people's worlds? Like, I guarantee doing that will make some people judge and other people question. And in either case, you're creating a possibility.
I love that so much. And I know in our conversations, like Crystal and Chris, we were creating a few days ago, and one of the questions that like popped for me with money that really along the lines of what Chris talked about is like, if the purpose of money were to nurture your body, how much would you allow yourself to have? And I love that question. It's such a different approach, like fundamentally with regard to money. Like we often go to like, money's to pay your bills, money's to, you know, like put the food on the table, money's to pay the car note, like whatever that is, right? But like if you stop for just a moment, you were like, okay, the purpose of money is to nurture my body. How does that change the way that you play with money, the way that you ask for money, the amount of money that you're actually willing to have and be when you buy the Valentino clothes, or you buy the like super high end impractical car because it just makes your body sing with joy. I have a friend who I introduced to the tools of access consciousness a few years ago, specifically with regard to money. And I gave him the Getting Out of Debt Joyfully book by Simone Milicis. And I've watched his financial reality change. And a couple of weeks ago, he's always had like an affinity for Gucci, but had never been in a Gucci store. And so I took him and I said, come on, we're going to Gucci. Like we're going to walk in there and we're just going to look at stuff. And there was no expectation, but like, we walked up and there was this really beautiful Gucci jacket on the, like hanging up, and I took it down and I was like, I think this would actually look great on you, and it's your size. And he was like, what? Oh my goodness. So he put it on, and I watched his body come to life and the joy that was on his face. And it was this thing where like, yeah, okay, it was more than he had invested up to that point on a jacket, but the joy and the nurturing that was in his body, it was no question about whether or not that jacket like needed to go home with him, right? And he ended up purchasing it, and it was totally in a beyond for like the next several hours afterwards. But like that's the thing where it's one of those things when you're actually looking at the places that where you can use money to nurture your body. And maybe it's not a Gucci jacket right now. Like, 5-10 years ago, that was an absolute beyond for me, right? Like I could have never even walked into Gucci, let alone encourage my friend to buy it. But but that's the thing is like, what if you're actually willing to even start to explore the impossible, just like Chris was saying, like the thing that you're like, who the hell do I think I am walking into Gucci or purchasing organic vegetables or, like
those carrots are expensive.
It's so expensive. You know what I mean? But it's like whatever your thing is, like, and now, I'm talking about Gucci now, but like I said, 10 years ago, like I was broke. And that, so my reality has continued to shift and change, and I'm asking for more. But it's like, what's your thing right now that puts you into beyond? Like, choose that, do that, go into that store, put on that Rolex, even if it seems like it's 50 years down the road. Like, start that process of introducing your body to things that are nurturing and nourishing for it. You don't have to go home with it, but experience that energy so you're familiar with it. And then that's the energy that you continue to ask for to show up. And that informs your choices.
So cool. Wow. So
I want to tell a quick story about that, because we're on this thing about bodies, and doing things like paying the extra to fly first class. People have a lot of judgment of that, but really what it's for is your body. You don't have to line up as long. You get more space. You get a more comfortable seat. You get better food. These are all things that are for your body, right? Now, I remember once I was flying from Perth to Brisbane in Australia, which is about a 5-hour flight, and I was flying first class, so I was getting on the plane first. And I'll never forget, there was a little boy with his grandfather in line, and the little boy said, "Grandpa, what's first class?" He was fascinated by it. And the grandfather said, "Oh, that's just for people who need to pay too much so they feel better about themselves." And I went, wow, this is where you get delivered and implanted with a point of view. So I got on the plane first and sat down. And as soon as I saw the grandpa and the little boy getting on the plane, I pulled so much energy from the little boy and projected at his body the joy and the gift of having money and enjoying it.
Yeah.
I was like, it's not wrong to buy somebody else's point of view, and there is so much more possible and available.
I'm just realizing as we're talking, like how much, structure has been just invented. Even just the different classes on the airlines was an invention to create something, right? Like all these inventions that we just bought them as real and true, and then created these stories around them. And what's really true is that we can choose. Like, that's so cool.
Totally.
You can choose to make it hard, or you can choose to make it easy.
Yes.
And that's the thing too, that, we talk about so much, that like anything you're willing to look at, you can change.
Yeah.
And when you look at a lifetime of entrainment, or lifetimes, right, of entrainment and points of view around money, it's a lot, and it can be overwhelming. And that's where, like, going back to the How to Become Money workbook, and thanks for popping up. I see the little banner in there. Yeah. So the thing about that is the questions in the How to Become Money workbook are designed to start to peel away all of those like limiting beliefs, all of that entrainment, all of those places and spaces where you actually have like bought a lot of lies about money, but never looked at them because you've never questioned them or had someone else question you about them. And that's what's really, really cool when you see the How to Become Money workbook, whether you've done it one time or 100 times. There is still like, there's layers and layers and layers that allow you to step into greater and greater and greater. And so that's Chris sent out an email recently that said like it's not just for poor people.
No.
Child. And it's so true though, because I was excited to like facilitate this class with Chris as I was the first time we did it and the first time I read it years before that. So it's like there's this excitement of like, ooh, what's gonna happen as we like come together in like vulnerability and willingness to create more and start to like really ask these questions and get present with them.
The first time we did this book, I personally made $70,000 that month.
You shut up.
That I wasn't
Don't shut up.
So I need to do this series for what it creates for me. I don't really give a shit about anybody else.
I'm the same. I'm in for myself for sure.
But like, we had a woman that came in at the beginning. So it's 10 sessions. A woman came in at the beginning and she had like thousands and thousands of dollars in credit card debt. And the last session, she popped in we have like a chat with all the attendees. She popped a zero balance. Like she took a picture and her credit card like debt was a zero balance, like in 10 sessions. So it's like, and again, disclaimer, that may or may not happen for you. So whatever you do, choose it. But like, that's the thing is, Chris is generating $70,000. Like I'm changing my financial reality as well. I just put down a down payment for a new car that I'm like really excited about. And yay! And I like 6 months ago, a year ago, I never in a million years would have like even considered something like that. And I mean,
yeah. The workbook for me has been intense. Like I said this on Christopher's show, like it was the thing that I used to change where I was functioning from with money, because I was doing exactly what Chris said, which was epic hand to mouth and getting down to less than zero every month. And, with facilitating, I had an access business and I was doing access, except I would, wake up in the morning and my first thoughts about money were worry and stress and how little I had. And I finally got it. I'm like, if I don't actually look at where I'm foundationally functioning from with money, if I don't change the roots, the leaves are just going to keep showing up the same. So I realized the one thing I'd never done was do what Gary told us, which was go through the How to Become Money Workbook. The one thing I had never tried was the one thing Gary said to do.
Yeah.
So I did it. And yeah, every week for 8 weeks is really what it took for me. Like I sat down and did the whole thing in one sitting. I'm extreme, and like 4 hours. But like I started to, it like just opened up more consciousness. I could actually perceive what I was doing to myself that I was so unconscious before. I was just functioning from it. And 8 weeks later, I finally got it. I'm like, oh, well, if I can put this much energy into creating shit, I guess I can put this much energy into creating something great. And that was the beginning of just changing the fight forever. Like it just changed forever after that. So I'm so thrilled you guys are doing this.
Yeah.
Me too. It oozes into your world in a way that is just can't be described perfectly. It's not about, like, we do activities in the class to get you to see where you're functioning from, but what it changes and how it changes it is really quite magical. It's not so linear as, oh, I realize I'm doing this, I'll stop that, and then things will get better. It's not like that. It just it percolates into your world, and then things just change in the weirdest and most unexpected ways.
Yeah, it like molecularly melts everything, and then you're like just different after. It's awesome. Cool. Well, you guys are more than welcome to join us. We start tonight. The link is right there.
3.5 hours from now.
3.5 hours. Yeah. So jump. And and if you're watching this in the future, I'm sure this will be in the shop somewhere, or you can email support@mrchristopherhughes.com and ask him for it if you missed it. But if you're watching now, we can't wait to see you if that's something you're choosing. And you guys, thank you so much for being in the world. I'm so grateful.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Yeah. Bye, you guys. We'll see you all next week.
Bye.